In today's video, we're going to be talking about the artwork of Hermitcraft Season 10. I recently shared this workspace to Twitter, and a lot of people were really interested in my design process for the new vintage collection that I've been working on, and it made me realize that I have done quite a lot of graphic design work for this season of Hermitcraft. I thought it would be interesting to take you through my creative process, I suppose. Talk through some of my references, and just share what I've been up to. So let's start with how it all started. The title screens, these actually were not planned for the season, but as the season was coming up, I was watching through old episodes of Hermitcraft just to get a feel for what the vibe used to be like. And I realized that when I was watching it on my phone, and I was kind of watching it down like this, when the screen went black, I could just see myself, and I didn't enjoy that very much. So about 2 days before the video was releasing, I hopped into Adobe Illustrator and started designing all of this stuff. And it started with creating all of these patterns. And these patterns are heavily inspired by Wes Anderson films, more specifically the promotional posters for Wes Anderson films. They tend to focus heavily on texture and patterns and like really minimal backgrounds with then the characters on the front. And I just thought that would work well for the posters that I wanted to create. And I think that Wes Anderson really matches the vibe of Hermitcraft as a whole. He always creates kind of whimsical, playful worlds where nothing is taken too seriously and there's kind of comedy within the absurdity of situations. I would say that matches up with Hermitcraft incredibly well. So these are all of the patterns that I created. Honestly, I feel like I should create some more, and I should also bin some off. Like, I don't think I've ever used this one, and I would use this one, except I don't have one with that. I've never actually... That's not in my Premiere Pro document. Then from making the pattern backgrounds, I then made this thing here, which is what the text was going to sit on. And I knew, again, in keeping with Wes Anderson, I was going to be doing Futura bold fonted text. I knew that would match up with this kind of style, but it still looked a little bit bland. So that's when I decided I was going to draw myself a stamp to put on the edge as if this is some kind of postcard. And this stamp is actually from this book. Well, it's heavily inspired by a stamp in this book. So this book is called Designing Graphic Props for Filmmaking. It's by Annie Atkins. And Annie Atkins does a lot of the art department stuff for Wes Anderson films. This book is awesome. If I flick through, here he is. So that stamp there, I saw that and I was like, I think I can make that work with my face. So I kind of copied the rough borders and the color scheme, and I think it worked out really well. But there were certain situations that I thought didn't need a title screen, but they needed me to have something on the screen. The way that I used to use the black screen cuts was never normally to actually indicate chapter changes. It was more to just make a little comment in between clips. And I still wanted to have the ability to do that without having a title card. And that's where this idea came along, where we have sort of gradiented background, and then we just have items that have existed in the Hermitcraft universe. And this was so much fun. And this was one of the first graphic design projects that I had taken on in a long time, and it was incredibly enjoyable to create everything. And again, a lot of these things are inspired by stuff that is in this book. So for example, the Redstone incident report actually comes from a death report, I think, in here. I know it's a prop from the Grand Budapest Hotel. So this is the document that I was pulling from. That is where I got the idea. Another thing that I actually got inspired by in this book. So this little addition to Hermitcraft ticket is inspired by this movie ticket here, which I believe they were using as a reference for a prop that they were making. I couldn't recommend this book enough. So I think I spent 2 or 3 days designing all of these various different things, creating little Easter eggs that I really enjoyed seeing people decipher when the episodes started releasing. You know, people decoding all of the binary here and people looking up the Oh Dear website and seeing that the lagering silo was actually a thing, and then, you know, the official rich list and all of that sort of stuff. Also, just as a fun fact, I believe I was the 24th member of Hermitcraft, which is why this number exists. So then it was a case of just laying out all of the items, and then I believe I imported them into After Effects and put like a film grain effect on them so they're a little bit more textured. I think the titles are also slightly animated. These shift gradually across and our little stamp here wiggles. So that was all very fun. And I thought that would be kind of it for me when it came to artwork on the Hermitcraft server. I thought I was done, but then the rest of the season has kind of turned into a slightly more art-led experience. It all sort of started with this concept art here, which genuinely I was not planning on releasing at all to the public. I was more drawing this so that I had some understanding in my head of what I actually wanted to build on the server. And I don't know, I had the record feature on Procreate, which is what I use to do all of my digital artworks. And I hummed and hawed about it, and I thought it would make for an interesting and kind of unique perspective in a Hermitcraft episode, so I included the time-lapse, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. I don't love the painting. It's really, really scrappy. I like this tree specifically, but yeah, the perspective is a bit weird. But again, it was purely just so I could get things worked out in my head. But people really enjoyed the concept art, and I kind of knew that I wanted to do concept art for each of the buildings, but I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to do it until I needed to build the interior of our van. We were about to go away on a camping trip, and I knew we were camping in the van, but the inside of the van was completely empty. So I did an isometric drawing of how I wanted the inside of the van to look. And then I realized that I could probably do that for Minecraft builds as well. So after doing the van drawing, I then just hopped into Procreate, set up the grids and things, and drew this. This is Big Ron's, and it ended up being really popular, and I think for good reason. It was so fun working on this, and it like set my mind on fire for like the world building elements of Minecraft. And it also allowed me to see Minecraft as something different from like the blocks themselves. Made me realize that the blocks can kind of represent anything that you want, as stupid as that sounds. But again, you would have thought I would have learned from my mistakes. I don't actually have the design document for this business card. I don't even think I saved it because, again, I wasn't planning on sharing this. I did this for myself so that I could get an insight into what Big Ron was like. And then after doing it, I was like, oh yeah, maybe people would be interested. And it turns out people really like the fact that I do the business cards and everything. In fact, someone down in the comments said it really well. The concept art of the building tells you a lot about the building, but then the concept art of the business card tells you a lot about the person. And I like that. Willie's Woodyard is probably my favorite of all of the building designs. I love the color palette. I really like this staggered look. I really like this chimney. Yeah, when this came together, I was really happy. And also, I actually drew it in the van. I drew this in a forest in Fontainebleau while it was raining. And it took me about 2 days. It took me a day to do the drawing and then another day to do all of the shading and things. But I'm really happy with how it came together. And I absolutely love this. I really love the tapered edges of the business card. And this is heavily inspired by Aaron Draplin, who's an amazing graphic designer. And this book that I have here, called Pretty Much Everything by the Draplin Design Company, just has... I mean, this is basically a book of what I'm doing right now. So if you're enjoying this video, you'll probably like this book. But it just has years and years of like logo designs and logo development and just all sorts of posters. And Aaron Draplin has this really sort of bold, thick line design style. It just looks super cool. And actually, I think that font, the Willie's Woodyard font, is a Draplin Design Company font. Yeah, I'm almost certain it is. But look, you can even see, even with the Big Ron's stuff, there's like some inspiration there. So I went through, did all of the concept art for things like Jill and Bill's, and then I didn't do concept art for the buildings for Rich and Rich and the Safe Storage, but we do have all of the designs for the business cards and things. And a lot of people rightly pointed out that the Rich and Richardson business card, that is heavily inspired by American Psycho. This is honestly, this is really Minecrafty. I don't know how I feel about it, but I do enjoy the 3D-ness. I never really work in 3D, so that was fun. And then the final build on the bottom layer is the Mind Laboratory. And obviously I've got this concept art for like a really grungy, just like filthy laboratory, basically. It looks I wouldn't want any scientific research to be done in here. But my goal for creating the logo and creating all of the artwork around it was basically to just get as corporate and as boring as I possibly could and just as vague and uninteresting as I possibly could, and it meant that I had to look at some of the dullest references ever. they're not saved here, but I just remember I was looking at so many corporate posters and everything, and yeah, I came up with this idea right here, which I think is pretty cool. It works well. I also wanted to make sure that it would work well in Minecraft. It could be actually put onto a map, and that worked well. And then this is the poster that I released with the build of Mind, the laboratory. I think it's also worth mentioning the little Mind short that I did recently, and there will be more of these coming out throughout the season. But this was heavily inspired by the series Severance. Specifically this room, I absolutely love the sets that they have in Severance, and it was really fun to recreate it in Minecraft. So we've got these long corridors, leading lines, super boring green carpet. Got the Mind posters everywhere, that was important to me. And then we've got like this big empty room with just the single computer right in the middle and just loads of empty space. Yeah, and there is the Mind design on a Minecraft map, and I think it worked out really, really well. Oh, I guess, yeah, there's one other business. This one, again, this is so Draplin, this Boulder Bros one. That is the Draplin font. I mean, look, it looks like the Draplin Design Company logo in a way. It was just fun. I just love the idea of making a corporate promotional poster for a shop in Minecraft. There's just something really funny about that. This is so fun to do. I really like this halftone effect that I did in Photoshop. I love all of these fake certification things that I did. It's Big Ron approved, whatever that means. They've crossed out their certified traders fail, but they've still left it on the poster. I don't know. I find this stuff, I don't know why I find this stuff so fun. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't mean anything to the Minecraft builds whatsoever. You never see it again, but I just find it so fun diving into the world of these people. Let's move on to the Big Ron's merchandise. So this was the first merch collection that I've done in ages, and it's definitely the first merch collection I've ever designed, and I was pretty scared. And I spent a lot of time on this, trying to make sure that the designs were cool, but they were also in keeping with the Minecraft world that I created. And it all started with trying to work out Big Ron's kind of like emblem, the logo that was going to be on his employee uniforms. And you can kind of see the design process here. And you can also tell that I've started to take the designing a little bit more seriously now. Like, I'm keeping my old designs and building from them. Whereas, back here, I would just delete stuff because I wasn't taking it that seriously. It's all fun. Whereas now I'm doing merchandise, and these are things that people are going to buy. I've gradually developed the process. As Aaron Draplin himself says, vectors are free, I think. I think that's what he says. But anyway, it's something to do with don't delete your old stuff. It doesn't cost anyone anything to just store it, copy and paste, and then work from it. So I started with this idea of having the Big Ron's Tech Superstore and then these kind of squares and circles and things surrounding it within this white emblem. It's a cool start, and then gradually started adding things. I really, really like those. That idea came from old handwritten registers at my school when I was in infant school. And I remember having to do the register in my class where you tick everyone off, like roll call or whatever you want to call it. And you would have to do a nice diagonal line through the squares. And I always found it satisfying. So that's where that comes from. And then, gradually started boldening things, really trying something crazy here because I wasn't feeling this. Fading things, adding this sort of 3D effect. Big change came with switching from Futura over to PP Monument Extended. So this is a PangramPangram font. It's worth mentioning PangramPangram is a font foundry. The fonts are quite expensive, especially if you're using them for prints and things like that, but they're beautiful. So at this point, I was starting to feel really happy. And then from there, it was just kind of moving things around a little bit and then adding this little thing so that we didn't have this runoff. Instead, I don't know, it feels a little bit more balanced. Cool. So we had the Big Ron's Tech Superstore logo. Next up was this fake poster that I wanted to go on the back of the t-shirt. That came together really, really quick, and I love it. This one I imagined as the company uniform. And again, we're using that Monument Extended font. From there on out, I think we use that for basically everything. Oh, I mean, look, you can see the blue and the red. I probably opened it to this page and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can do that, and then just did the big bronze thing. Yeah, here we go. So you can see where the ideas have sort of come from here. This sort of big, bold lines, super minimal in details, but gets the point across. And yeah, I think this is one of my favorite designs. I wear the big bronze Magic Mountain t-shirt all the time, especially when I'm rock climbing. Now, I wanted to include a subtle hint to Grumbot, partly because when we filmed the big Ron stuff, I wanted to be able to make a real-life Grumbot. We'll get onto that in a little bit. And I thought I would style Grumbot off of an old Macintosh computer. So we've even got the Mac logo has been switched out for an R for Ron's. And yeah, it was cool. It was cool, like, pixelating the face here and then adding in all of the screen and things. I just really like this color palette. And then doing this inspired me to actually make the pixelated logo t-shirts. Gosh, I really fought with these. Like, I wasn't really sure where I was going. I wanted to do something with cassette tape, so I wasn't sure how, and it was pretty painful. I briefly thought this would be fun to have almost as like a whole back art piece. And I don't know, it's kind of cool. Like, it's kind of cool as a poster. And there was a time when we were filming the Big Ron stuff, I actually wanted to get this printed as a poster so we could have it on the wall, but the timing didn't work out. So yeah, that just exists now, but there's no use for it. This is wild. This is so... I don't know what I was thinking. This was getting pretty late into the process. And then eventually we ended up on this design here. And it's really cool. I think there's like a really subtle difference. Is it just shading? I think there's just more shading. Yeah, more shading. This is a Pangram font again. And then we've got the Turn Up the Volume at Big Ron's Tech Superstore in the Draplin Design Company font, which is actually called DDC Hardware 45. And then I wanted to make sure that we had two colorways so that we could have multiple different t-shirt colors and things, and I like this one. So what do we actually have going on here? It has been a while. So this has been liquefied, and then it has had all sorts of blurs put on it. I would imagine there's also some kind of like half-tone effect going on. Either way, none of it actually matters, because as soon as people started ordering this, I got a message from Fourth Wall saying that my printer jam t-shirt was causing printer jams. This sort of like half transparent effect here, really, really hard for them to print onto t-shirts, and they couldn't do it. So then I had to stop selling them. So if you do have a printer jam t-shirt, congratulations. You caused many headaches to the merchandise supplier. Now, I think it would be silly of me not to include some info about the Little Big Ron's commercials that we did, because these were so much fun. I basically just bought a bunch of old technology, piled them up inside of my friend's shed. I'm very fortunate that I have a friend who has a shed that is A, this big, and B, just perfectly matches the vibe of Big Ron. And I think by far my favorite was the one that involved Grumbot. So we had this old black and white CRT TV, and then I've got a bunch of little animations that we played through it. And oh my goodness, getting a signal from a computer into this thing was a nightmare. It required like 4 or 5 different dongles running into one another. But I think the effect that it created was really cool. We were using some like really dirty anamorphic lenses with loads of pro mist. I think we hazed up the room as well. And then in terms of color grading, I'm 99% certain I'm using, Dehancer, which is like a film emulation program. So we've basically just got loads of muddiness and just vintaginess and loads of film grain and things. And I think the aesthetic really worked for what I wanted, and people really enjoyed them, and everyone seemed really happy with their merchandise as well. So that was a huge success. And off the back of that success, it got me thinking about maybe going back through and doing some designs for old concepts from previous Hermitcraft seasons, because I've done merchandise in the past and it's always been through companies and they always do the designing, and that is always awesome. Obviously the designers are ridiculously talented and they create amazing stuff, but I guess that they are not quite as like personally involved in it as I am. So it's quite nice to be able to go through and really think about every single thing. So we've got things that touch on Hermitcraft Season 5, Season 6, Season 7 sort of area, Season 7 over here, and then Season 8 as well. And with this collection, you can kind of see a lot of references mixing together. So we've definitely got some Draplin stuff. We've got some kind of mix of graphic design and regular art over here. And then we have some slightly more grungy elements as well. And some of this is inspired by just general graphic design work. For example, the stuff that like PangramPangram put out. And there's also a poster designer called Brad Mead, who I really like. So this is a good reference. That sort of really grungy, gritty, printed, textured effect with like bold colors. Yeah, these are cool. But I also wanted to keep it playful and not too serious, because at the end of the day, you know, these are Minecraft videos. It all has to still be quite fun. Now, a fun fact, I was not sure that I was going to release these. So I did these and I was like, I will think they're cool. I mean, I'm literally wearing that t-shirt right now. I did these and I was like, I will think these are cool. I got myself some stock images of like a peace sign, a heart, and then a monstera. Took them into Photoshop and did threshold, noise, various different blurs and things, and it creates this really, really cool effect. And I was like, that is awesome. I want that on a t-shirt, but there is no way people are actually going to buy that. And people might actually hate the fact that I've got an anatomical heart on a t-shirt. But then when I released the teaser of the merchandise, I took a photo and kind of snuck this in, and people were zooming in on it and being like, this is the one that I want. So I was pretty happy. And it has been the best seller. So there you go. Sometimes you shouldn't trust your gut. I tell you what you should do, though. You should definitely look up emblems before you draw them. My peace sign was almost a Mercedes sign. I noticed this at the very last minute and switched it out. Now, of course, with the Vintage Collection, I needed to make a Vintage Collection promo. My main reference was this commercial by Maceo Frost, which I absolutely love. I just love being able to see the sets and like lights in the frame and things. So I definitely wanted to emulate that, but I wanted it to be more playful because, of course, again, this is Minecraft content. I wanted it to be jokey. So we came up with this idea of adding these like after the fact scenes. So we've got all the cool stuff and all of the stills popping up and these super fast shutter speed action moments. We've got some mini DV stuff. I actually did use this camera here, this old mini DV tape camera, to create these, which are just great. The zoom on this camera is awesome. It is so much fun. And you just get these just artifacty, digital, crunchy looking shots. As a fun fact, this is actually not something I've ever mentioned. The song that I used in all of that was actually created by me. I played it on the guitar, I added the drum track, I added all the samples and everything. Yeah, it was just a bit of fun. I had no use for it whatsoever, but I thought it fit the vibe, and it meant that I didn't have to pay for a license because obviously I made it. So yeah, I used it for this stuff. Craft Vintage Collection. Yeah, it's cool. Remember, fun projects to work on. Look at me smiling. That's a guy that's having a fun time. I'm throwing paper at the camera. Oh, and this is another PangramPangram font, by the way. Hopefully, what you can tell from this video is that I have just had way too much fun designing all of this stuff throughout the season. This season has been very art-led, I suppose, and it's just been a blast creating all of it. I do think it's actually elevated my videos quite significantly because it means that I'm kind of coming at things from multiple different angles and directions. And that's cool. And of course, you know, after all this, if you are interested in the Hermitcraft Vintage Collection, it is going to be on sale until early January. So feel free to pick it up whenever. And yeah, if you have any questions about any of the artwork stuff, let me know down in the comment section because I will be trying my best to answer. Cool. See ya.